Hi everyone. Hi everyone, it's Dr. Gary Batman from Teletrim, coming to you on our live stream today, Friday. Thanks for tuning in. As soon as I get it up, I can see some questions. I guess always where to start. Hi, I'm Dr. Gary Batman. I'm a co-founder at Teletrim, and we're about making a weight loss journey that's more personal, and personable for everyone who joins us. And we also like to do that by providing education and time. I guess, as soon as I get the live stream started, there we go. Now we're good. I guess one of the big questions is, why did I start Teletrim? And I think part of the big reason is time after time I heard the same questions from my patients, my friends, my acquaintances, and it's, why are consults so rushed? The doctor gave me this medication and I'm not quite sure what it's for or how to use it. And in my mind, I'm like, why aren't these things being explained properly? And it's not the blame of doctors. It's honestly, we're not going to blame doctors. The system itself is set up by the government to not pay doctors enough. We have a finite resource and a lot of people in Australia. So there's a limited number of spaces and we need to make it fair and equitable. So the Australian healthcare system is sort of built around there not being enough time. Time does come at a premium. Depending on what suburb you live in, that premium is pretty steep for 15 minutes. It can be over $80, $100 for 15 minutes. Maybe if you're in the West, it could be bulk billing, so nothing, or somewhere in between. Again, I can't solve that problem. I'm not built to be a politician, nor do I want to be one. No, I don't want to be one. But what I can do is offer a solution of my own. And I think it's because I love talking to people. I love talking to my patients. I think a lot of times my patients would just love me to shut up, but I think they tolerate me pretty well. But I think they like that because I like to talk. I like to explain things. One of my backgrounds was as a teacher before medicine, and I like to make sure that things are understood and try multiple ways of making sure that when I explain things, the message is coming across and being understood. Because I want people to feel knowledgeable and aware, but I want them to feel safe asking questions that could be embarrassing, or ask questions so that they can understand their health better. Why specifically for the weight loss industry? I think there needs to be a big change in the weight loss industry, and I think it's because weight loss has become incredibly confusing for people. I recently started using sort of TikTok with my daughters, monitoring what we're watching, and what I would see over and over was vast amounts of information, differing opinions, and some of these things were medically okay, but the majority were medically not. Okay, some were outliers, like, oh, this worked for one person, but it won't work for the other 99 out of 100. There are things that are, a few things that are medically kind of dangerous. We always talk about, well, not we, but you always kind of hear about raw milk, this and that, and you have to be very careful with that. So that's one of the things that you have to be worried about. And with all this information from influencers who are non-medical, and people are out there, it's hard to know what to do when you have all this conflicting advice. Who's right? Who do I trust? And I think what it leads people to is being either overwhelmed by trying to just sort of figure it out, or discouraged on their weight loss journey, so they stop and quit. So what it made me do is it made me want to help people truly understand what's happening in their own body, because the weight loss battle is really battling our body. Don't follow trends or influencers or even just kind of guessing what to do. I wanted people to work in a way that's clear, evidence-based, concise, and personal. And I want them to do it so they can make informed decisions about their health, because weight loss is such a long journey. I think I'll come back to that in a second. No, I'll come back. Sorry about that. I think what makes Teletrim different from other sort of weight loss companies or that, I think it's the way we care for our patients. You know, I've been very deliberate about how we structure Teletrim, the doctors that we get. I want people to feel easy and comfortable talking to me, or, you know, if I can't be available 24/7, you know, to be safe and comfortable talking to one of my colleagues who we pick. You know, we already know healthcare is intimidating. You know, trying to get an appointment, you know, the amount of knowledge that's out there, you know, sometimes what the answers are, sometimes what the questions are. And I don't want that intimidation to be there. I don't want there to be any barriers to exist here. That's why I do these live streams. I want the embarrassment and the barriers and everything to be me. I mean, I don't want to be a barrier, but you know what I'm saying. I don't want there to be the barrier, but I want to take all the embarrassment. I want people to be able to ask questions freely, without being pressured or judgment. You know, I want to foster openness and trust and real conversation, without minimizing or missing, you know, traditional care. You know, leaving that time for that care. And I think that's one of the things that makes us different is, you know, we're not just saying, hey, here's an app. Ooh, extra $50, we'll give you a dietitian. You know, I'm here because you have questions and you have knowledge you want, or you have concerns. And, you know, it could just be simple. And that's the difference we want to make. We want it to be an area. And hopefully, you know, as well, you'll make friends along the way. You might meet people on the live stream. You know, there could be weight loss dude Oz 27. Hey, that guy's got kind of a funny sense of humor. You know, maybe I'll just message him, and, you know, we got a buddy to message like, hey. So I think it's going to be that personal touch. You know, there's the normal live stream. There's going to be a private live stream for our members. Because again, weight loss is a journey, and you need someone who's going to be there along the way. Now, that's not necessarily holding your hand, you know, but it's help giving you solutions, you know, whether that's information, just support. Hey, I'm here holding your hand, answering questions, medications, if that's the case we need to go, and, you know, helping interpret what's happening with your biology, you know, that thing that we're trying to fight, the thing that holds us back. Let me come back to this, what's happening in their own body. And I think this is a lot of what I see out there with influencers and the other TikToks not really getting to is they kind of graze the surface of what weight loss is about. You know, it's do these 100 jumping jacks every morning before you have your coffee enema or whatever it is, and you'll lose the weight. And that might work, but probably not for me. It's not how I like my coffee. But I think what you get there is not quite something that's sustainable. Weight is a chronic condition. Our evolution is one of survival, and you got to go down to base elements. Energy in, energy out. Do I have the energy in so that I can use the energy to run away from predators? Do I have the energy in so that I can fight for whatever, food, mate, land? So in a primitive sort of way, our body is geared for having energy available to do the things we need to do to survive. Modern age has made that pretty easy to get food. I mean, go open your cupboard, Go to 7-Eleven. Go to the supermarket. Go down the Tim Tam aisle. There's a lot of things our ancestors would wow about, and our body doesn't know how to handle that because evolution's not that fast. So it's up to our brains, which often get overridden by survival instincts. So it's up to our brains and our muscle memory or whatever to overcome that. And I think, again, a lot of people gloss over that, but there's that biology in there. Who's actually looking at the hormones? Who's telling you, like, this is what this hormone does. This is what we need to do to get those things more regulated. These are the hormones you have. This is the underlying condition you have that is messing with your hormones, that is making you put on fat. We know about cortisol and it's being a stress. We know about sleep and how it changes our leptin and ghrelin, our hunger and our satiety, and the new one, raptin, that we talked about. So I think there's a lot of information that you need someone to help you interpret and what to do with. And the same for medications. There's a lot of medications out there, and they offer good results, sometimes quick results, and that's where people can fall off the wagon. I'm honest with everyone. I'm like, this is chronic. Weight loss is a lifetime battle, but it's one with the best crossing the finish line, even though there's not really a finish line, but getting past that point where you go, you know what, I'm feeling great, I'm looking great. Doesn't have to be Brad Pitt Fight Club great. It can just be, you know what, I'm looking better than I've looked in a long time. And this kind of goes on to if I'm healthier metabolically, I'm healthier physically, I'm more active, I'm more able to enjoy life. I'm living a longer life and a more active, longer life. I can be with my friends. I can do things with my family. I can see that grandchild, maybe that great-grandchild. Things that I couldn't do, sit out and garden. So I think that's the thing that makes us different, is we help personalize your care to something that's you. You are unique, and we want your care to be unique to you. It's going to use pieces of everything, so there's going to be a pattern, but your care is going to be unique to you. And then we want you to feel like part of the team, part of the family, secure enough to ask those questions, make funny jokes. Let me move on. Yeah. You don't have to, here's a good one. We want to be the people you ask about, your testosterone or weight loss, not the doctor dad at school, who's often me. But I don't mind it, because I love to chat. People like to have me shut up. No, I'm kidding. Why did I become a doctor? So this one's always a good one. Originally, I wasn't planning on becoming a doctor. I was actually a maths graduate. I did mathematics. I was working on a graduate degree. One of my professor's husbands was a doctor, and through interactions and everything, me lecturing, to students and everything, just the way I interacted. I think he noticed something, and he came to me and said, "Hey, Gary, literally, you're being wasted. You're being wasted in this. You should be a doctor." And that was just because of the way I spoke to people and the way I treated people, and just generally, made them the person, the center. I must have been something. Couldn't have been my great hair, I don't think. So I honestly had never thought about medicine, and then, something kind of clicked there to go, well, maybe I should just have a look into it. And about that time, my now sister-in-law was starting to get into medicine, so I had a little more exposure. And the things that I noticed amongst, following that doctor, seeing what my sister-in-law did, I realized how genuine connections can be made with patients, and how I love talking to people, and you get to talk to people and make these connections. I in medicine, I originally went radiology. He loves computers, put him in there. But the thing that made it hard for me was that the parts of radiology I like the interventional stuff, was because I got to actually talk to patients, not sit in a dark room and just stare. I think that was a big part of it. So then when I transitioned to GP, it was a good fit because I got to talk to patients, form these connections, see families growing, oh, okay, now all of a sudden we've got the child, the grandchild. So these things really just showed me that I love helping people by being present and listening and supporting and doing it in a meaningful way. And so I think that's that's kind of how I found my passion was, I mean, I grew up military as well, so we came from a service-oriented family. And I think, again, you hear the 5 love languages. I think my parents are both, small acts of service, and I think that's mine as well. So it kind of fits, I think. It's a bit self-serving on my part, but I think just doing for others just is a way of, it fulfills me in a way that I think teaching math didn't, radiology didn't, and the original doctor who did get me interested in medicine, he did weight loss stuff as well as part of the women's health that he did, being an obstetrician. And I think, seeing those interactions and seeing the results he got, and he had to use lots of different styles. This is going back like 30 years. We didn't have the drugs. We didn't have as much information, but he did it by reading each person and seeing what it was that they needed, that personal level, to get them to stay on the journey, to get that journey underway and stay on the path. And I think a lot of that just I absorbed, and it just, Anyway, enough about me. Just tell me to shut up in the chat. Just tell me, Gary, shut up. So I guess, one of the things that sort of I see in medicine is weight loss isn't, or heavy weight isn't quite treated just well enough. It's the common cause or an underlying cause for a lot of problems, or the side effect of a lot of other problems that sometimes make, a repeating loop. Weight makes things worse, which makes weight worse, and back and forth. And I think because of the time commitments in medicine, the shortening of consults, the lack of money from the government and those things, I think those things don't get handled well. So, as a doctor, this is exactly why I see health issues coming back. The root causes aren't addressed, so you just get the same problems that repeat over time. And a lot of the time, it's just weight. Now there's medications to help with weight. There's better knowledge to help with weight. Medication doesn't have to be for you. There's ways to do things much easier now than in the past. We know more about the calories that we need to bring in, and how we need to do with calories out. So I think there's a lot of stuff that way that needs to go. We got a question. When you say issues keep coming back, what does that usually look like in practice? I think, well, let's go with the simple one, weight, and then we'll talk about some other ones. So I guess weight's a good one. I see a lot of times people will lose weight. I would say losing weight is easy, but with medications it can be easy, or even there's a lot of programs out there, fitness things, just stuff to lose weight easy. And I see a lot of times people will lose weight and get to a target, and they're like, "Oh, I'm done, perfect. I don't have to work out again. I've reached this goal." But then the bad habits and the weight creep back up, and it just keeps coming back and forth and back and forth. And the problem with that is when you lose and regain, you're actually doing a bit more damage. That blood pressure gets high again, gets high again, and the body just has trouble shifting. So I think that's part of it. I think other stuff is the issues that keep coming back as we go, this patient's got diabetes, that's horrible, but it's okay. We can treat it now. We've got medicines. We've controlled their sugar. We've done this. And you go, well, what if we just kind of got them to lose maybe 5 to 15% of their weight, 3 to 6 kilos? What kind of effect would that have on their diabetes? Turns out that has a really good effect. Losing just, again, that 5 to 15% causes huge reduction in risk factors, your cardiovascular health, your type 2 diabetes, your visceral fat, we all want to look good, and so I think there's that aspect of it. So I think, I think that's kind of part of what it is. I'm not talking like eczema where it's, hey, there's a trigger and whatever. That one's a little bit harder, but, again, I think there's things that are just kind of common that cycle with weight. What changes when patients and doctors focus on long-term causes instead? I think I use the word sustainability, but it always makes you think like fish or like recycling or something. But honestly, I think when you focus on the long-term cause, like the underlying root cause and long-term changes and long-term goals, that long-term, when you have something you're really trying to avoid and we can do it early, I think when patients and doctors focus on that, it makes it easier. It's kind of going, hey, we're building a house. We've got the foundation, and we realize one brick's a little bit wonky. So we go, you know what? Hey, let's fix that wonky brick now. Beautiful. And build the rest of the house, not a problem. Versus this house being built, and nobody noticed that brick, and now all of a sudden we go, well, why is this wall a little bit leaning? Why is there a bit of a draft? How are insects getting in? What's going on? Why is it flooding? Why can water get in? And it's all because that one brick. But now, down the track, to come back and fix that brick, you got to tear down a wall, you got to do whatever. It's a lot more work. Where if it's recognized early and taken care of early, because we've seen that long-term, we've got that long-term focus, the spend, the effort, the motivation is much easier here than it is to go, I got to tear down a house. I'll learn to live with it, versus, hey, I'm just going to walk over and tweak a brick. If that makes sense. I hope that, I think that's a good one. And I guess, taking on with this long-term focus, I think it kind of goes to using that kind of focus and long-sightedness. It's the best way to show that, you deserve better medical care. As a doctor, I believe that. I believe, with time, clarity, proper medical knowledge or guidance, and not rushed decisions, we can start the journey sooner when it's easier rather than when it's harder, and it's going to be a lot more investment physically, mentally, maybe even surgically or medicinally. I think that's one of the big things. Where do you see patients feeling most let down by the system? I think where they're most let down by the system, yeah, here's where I go. I think the biggest thing, is where the government has cut funding. And so for practices to stay viable, to stay open, they've got to make up the money difference. And so I think what you see is that, even in hospitals, I'll get to that in a sec, in a practice, you'll see shorter consults so that they can fit more patients to get more money and keep the costs lower to their patients. Or you'll see, okay, we need X amount of dollars, let's have a gap to cover the costs that we need to keep our doors open, to let our doctors actually put gas in their car to drive, out west, north, south, whatever direction to. Is my device getting hot? Okay. Yeah, let me turn on the AC. Cool off things a bit. Yeah, so I think patients are let down by the system that way. In the hospital, it's the same thing. You see higher nursing staff ratios, You know? So where before patients got to, nurses got to be involved in providing that patient care. Um, in the hospital, you see it because the nurses used to get to provide that extra patient care. Now they're so run off their feet, going from patient to patient because the numbers they have to look after are stretched. Patients feel that, they see that. I mean, I can remember, adamantly, some of